And I hope everyone can see my screen. Could I get a thumbs up from Jackie or Jen? Can you see my screen? Great, thank you. So first of all, I want to introduce myself. I am Sandy Flack. I am the Deputy Director for the Office of Special Services and Inclusive Education. I am helping lead the transition of Child Find and FAPE from CDS to the public schools. And so one of the things that we have been working on with our schools going through this transition is working with their providers in what we're calling a mixed delivery system. So all of those providers that have programming within the school district's catchment area, we're calling that a mixed delivery system. So you'll hear us say that many times today, most likely. And I want to turn it over to Jackie Hersom to introduce herself. She is our co-presenter today.
Thanks, Sandy. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Hersom. I'm the Assistant 619 Coordinator for CDS, and I handle a lot of approvals, so I'm sure you've seen my name and talked to me many times. It's nice to see you all.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, so one of the things that we wanted to provide today is an overview of the law and why we are in the transition that we are in right now. So, as you know, in the state of Maine, Child Find and FAPE, which is Free Appropriate Public Education, has been the responsibility of Child Development Services. So this is a very unique structure. Maine is the only state in the whole nation that has had this structure for the last 30, 40 plus years. And as we know, that things have been problematic for a couple of years, and we have children that are not receiving their early childhood special education services. So there have been a number of attempts over the past 10 years to transition this responsibility to the public school. This was put forward, and we'll talk a little bit about that next, and was put into law last year. But really, we want to talk about the why behind why this law was proposed and enacted, and why it is really problematic for child development services. There is one thing that I want to also start out by saying is that while we sit here and say that the reasons why this isn't working for children, we want to make really clear to everyone here that this is not the fault of our very talented, our experts in the field that work at Child Development Services. We know that they are early childhood special educators. They have gone to school to work with children in this age group. They have honed their experience and talent and are working above and beyond to ensure that they are doing the most that they can do for to provide early childhood special education. The problem with CDS is not the staff at all. I want to make that perfectly clear. We appreciate them greatly. It is really the system. So, as we know, special education services are to be applied to general education services. Special education is a support service. And so the problem is that CDS does not own or operate any schools. They do have their own their pre-K programs, but they don't own and operate a general education setting, which is the biggest reason on why CDS has been struggling to provide early childhood special education. Because of this, they are, as you know, what this process looks like. They get an IEP ready and they put out a bunch of referrals and they wait and see who can take those referrals. So it's kind of a wait and see approach versus a planned approach to how to provide an IEP. And because of that, we have multiple layers of administrative support to make those processes happen for children. So which really takes away from providing services to children. And then because of this, we have also in the state of Maine created separate early childhood special purpose early childhood special education programs, which makes that a more restrictive setting and contributes to the high number of placements in those special purpose preschools, which is not what we want if we are working towards a least restrictive environment for all of our children. So another reason behind the why was the Maine Department of Education, specifically the Office of Special Services, had their federal monitoring visit this past fall. We knew that OSEP, which is the Office of Special Education Programs at the federal level, was going to be doing this visit. When this happens, the state spends about 2 years getting ready for this monitoring visit. And what happens at the federal level is they become very aware of what's happening in each state, and they monitor the news, they monitor information. And so they were well aware that CDS was struggling to provide early childhood special education. So when they came, we already knew that this was going to be an area that they would focus on in regards to their monitoring. And to be honest, it was a very interesting visit because they really had a difficult time wrapping their heads around our current 619 early childhood special education system. It is because it is so unique and it is so far different from other states in the nation. They really struggled with understanding how this is working. It became really clear they also they understood kind of why it wasn't working. And so when they come in, we know that these were areas that we needed to work on, and we needed to have a plan moving forward on how we were going to fix this. Just as when school districts and CDS are monitored by the state, if there are any areas that are out of compliance, they are required to have a plan to fix that moving forward. So we know that we have infants and toddlers and children not receiving their services. And so we need to have a plan moving forward to fix that. So a little bit about the legislation. So this started out last year going through the Education Committee as LD 345. That turned into LD 2214, which then became Public Law 2023 under the governor's supplemental budget. Specifically, it is Chapter 643, Part W. But basically, what happened was all of the language that was in LD 345 was just put into the governor's supplemental budget and passed through that process. So that enacted, I believe it was the second week in August last year. So we had to hit the ground running. We had already been communicating with school districts to see if they were interested in participating in a pilot year to help us figure out what early childhood special education through a school district would look like. And so we hit the ground running on the first day of school for all of those school districts that joined what we are calling cohort 1. And right now we are getting ready for school districts that are joining in cohort 2. And as you see, the next year we will have cohort 3, and then the following year it will be cohort 4. So I'm going to go over the parts of this law, and I'm going to kind of skim over them a little bit. Some of them I will focus on more in depth. And just so you know, we will make sure that you all get a copy of this presentation so you can go back and look at that as well. So the big part of this law, obviously, is the transition of child find and free appropriate public education for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds before they enter public school or kindergarten age with IEPs. That responsibility is transitioning to the school districts in the state of Maine by July 1st, 2028. So last year was our first year. And as I said, we had cohort 1, and we will end with cohort 4 in 2028. The other piece of the law is that the school districts can provide these services themselves. They may contract with public or private providers to support the services. And also, as part of this law, um, it has tasked the current CDS sites to stand up as support and service hubs. So as you can imagine, through this first year, we've been trying to figure out what that looks like for CDS. And we are still learning, and going into next year, that will be another year for us to gain more information. And I will talk a little bit more about the CDS support and service hubs later. Another part of the law was that the school districts that were interested in taking on this responsibility had to complete a readiness plan. And then the Commissioner of Education would approve whether a school district is ready to join the cohort. Some parts, the fiscal parts to this law, which is unique to this age group in the state of Maine, and once again, unique to the state of Maine, is that the CDS structure has been 100% state funded. And so we are passing that over to the school districts as 100% funded through the state, those services. Typically in a school district,
Sounds good, Art. Thank you so much.
oop,
Have a good
oop, okay. Um, so typically K through grade 12, or as children age out, there is what's called a EPS funding formula, which takes into consideration state funding and local funding. So there is typically a local share and a state share to educating children kindergarten through age 22. But for this age group, we are saying that it is 100% state funded. There is no local share to this. We developed a funding formula, and we also developed some high cost in district and out of district funding structures for this funding formula. We also have additional funding for to support school districts with standing up classrooms or any other needs that they may have to take on this responsibility. There was a $4 million revolving renovation fund. That process has already been completed. That was done last fall. And there were 4 school districts that were awarded money to do some renovations within their school district. The other part to this law was there was funding for supporting the Pathways Project, which is for teachers looking to obtain their 282B certification, which is special education birth through age 5. So specifically in this law regarding CDS, as I said, we have 4 years to transition all of the children out of CDS into the public school. But also within this 4 years, they are building this support and service hub. So we are required to take a look within CDS to see what that will look like. What are those services that we are going to be offering to the school districts? We are also tasked with developing guiding principles. We also have a parent advisory committee that we have started, and we're actually on the 3rd round of those meetings that we have for each site. And that's been a very positive experience to include parents in this process. And then if there were any situations where a family filed for due process during their time in CDS or because of the lack of service in CDS, CDS is still 100% responsible for paying for any compensatory services due to the lack of services during their time, the child's time in CDS. So as I said, we developed that Pathways project. So we have, I think it was between 40 and 60 new certified teachers with the 282B certification. One of the tasks that was in this law was pertaining the different retirement systems between CDS and the state. And that kind of resolved itself through that Windfall Elimination Act that allows people that work both under the Maine PERS retirement and Social Security to access both of those upon retirement. As I said, we had the revolving renovation fund. And then another big piece to this law is tasking us with developing a centralized main care billing system for Part B, which we are just in the beginning stages of researching and getting that started. So as you can imagine, this has been a huge endeavor at the state level. And this slide shows a graphic of all of the different teams that are involved in developing the system, receiving feedback, and updating any information that we may have for our school districts and CDS that are involved, and parents as well. So we have the commissioner's office. We actually have members from the governor's office. We have our data team. We have our fiscal team, which has been essential to helping us develop those funding formulas. We have our team at the Special Services Department. We are relying heavily on our CDS staff to support this transition as well. The early learning team is our general education team for this age group, and we work hand in hand and work very closely with them on how to support programs such as early childhood education programs such as yours, but also the public pre-K programs in public schools. We've been working with certification as we know that has been a challenge to find teachers with the 282B certification. So we've been working with them on how to build alternative pathways for people that are interested in working in this age group. And then through the revolving renovation fund, we've had to work closely with our school facilities team at the state as well. The other thing is not only are we working with teams across the Department of Education, we are also partnering cross agencies. So we are working with teams from the Office of Child and Family Services, so childcare licensing. We are meeting with other members of the Preschool Development Grant, really looking at, I think I use Childcare Finder in Maine a couple times a day to help school districts locate childcare programs in their catchment area. So that has been such a saver of time, that tool. So things like that. We have been working in depth on building up the understanding of what a mixed delivery system is for school districts. As you can imagine, school districts are very used to having children come into their building and they provide general education and special education and all the other services for children within their building. So having a school district learn about how to collaborate and partner with childcares and nursery schools and preschools in their catchment area has been a lift for them. And we are learning along with them what that looks like. So, and then we are also continuing our collaboration with the Office of Maine Care Services, as we know that that is part of the law that we need to work on, is that billing mechanism. A little bit more about the CDS support and service hubs. And this is something that looks different right now, depending on the CDS site and the school districts that are working with that CDS site. So some of our school districts that joined cohort 1 had some needs that they wanted to collaborate with CDS for. And so that might have looked like case management services. It could have been all the related service providers, speech, OT, PT. It could have been having children attend the CDS pre-K programs. It could have been accessing a psychological provider. it ran the gamut across the state. It really depended on what that school district needed, and then also what that CDS site had available. As we know, we are still in this transition, and CDS is still working very hard to provide services for all the children with IEPs that aren't within the school districts yet. One of the things that we also worked on recently is a rate sheet for the school districts so that they are getting paid to provide these services, and then they are also paying CDS for those services. So as you can see from this list, it is quite comprehensive, and anything that CDS provides now, we are looking at a way that we can offer that to school districts in the future as well. We want to be a partner in this transition. So this graphic, and once again, you'll get a copy of this slide deck. This is a graphic of all of the school districts that are in cohort 1. So at the beginning of last school year, they came on board, and they have been providing Child Find and early childhood special education for children in their catchment area. And then the next slide that you'll see is cohort 2. There's a couple things I want to say about this slide. One, wow, we have way more school districts, which is awesome. We anticipate that we are going to be serving well over 1,000 children in the school districts under cohort 2. There are some nuances to this list. One of the things that we offered school districts joining cohort 2 was they could take on 4-year-olds only for the first year, and then they have to take on 3-year-olds next year. We only have a handful of school districts that are taking on 4-year-olds. And if you're interested in that list, you can just contact either myself or Jen Hopkins or Jackie, and we can get that to you. And then there are a couple school districts that are still contemplating whether they are joining cohort 2. So they are not currently on this list. And we're hoping to wrap that up soon because we've already started with our professional development for cohort 2. And we want to make sure that our school districts are ready for this. Okay, so one of the things that we also worked on this year was having a better understanding of what it looks like for early childhood special education in our mixed delivery system. Last year, when school districts were joining cohort 2, we kind of set the threshold at the 2-star rating on the Rising Stars for Me lattice or ladder star system through Maine Roads to Quality. And what we found is throughout the year in meeting with our cross-agency and cross-department team, we came together and we're looking at the different criteria for 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star programming. And we kind of came to consensus that 3 stars is where we wanted to land as the appropriate setting for early childhood special education. And I'm going to describe this a little bit more in that if you are a program that contracts currently with CDS for providing for being a placement where early childhood special education can happen, you're called an ECETA, and I'm early childhood tuition. What is it, Jackie?
Early Childhood Education Tuition Agreement Program.
Agreement. I couldn't remember that last A. And so if any of you are contracting with CDS, you know Jackie, she probably has come to your program. She's done the approval process. But what we wanted was a streamlined and unified understanding between CDS and the school district. And really landing on that 3-star rating gave us, between those two entities, a really unified understanding of what a quality early childhood education program is. We also know that there are many early high quality early childhood education programs that are 2 stars and that are working with CDS, and that are some that are working with school districts right now. And so we wanted to give 2-star programs an opportunity to work towards a 3-star. So we have a very generous timeline, as you can see from this graphic. We rolled this out mid-April to our cohort schools, cohort 1 and cohort 2, as part of our mixed delivery system professional development. Today is another big target on this timeline. We are meeting with all the childcare providers and explaining to you that this moving forward will be our standard for early childhood special education programming, and also giving programs 2 years to move from a 2 to a 3 if they want to collaborate with either CDS or a school district. And so part of this is there will be a waiver application that is a very simple application. You basically just fill out some demographic information and who you are working with through Maine Roads to Quality. And then we will be helping monitor that, and Jackie will be the key person working on that with you as well. And I know I just saw a hand raise, so do we want to just stop for a second?
Sandy, it was Heather.
Oh, okay. All right. Are
Sorry
there,
about that.
that's all right. Before we switch over to Jackie, are there any questions? I'm going to stop sharing just for a second.
We do have a couple questions.
Okay.
One is, what happens to the children that are still not
Oops.
getting services because they do not have the staff? And I'm not sure if they mean the SAU does not have the staff, or if they mean CDS. So, and I'm not sure who wrote that one. Do you have a list of some of the SAUs that might still join?
Well, let's go back to the first question. Could you repeat that again, just so I can?
Yep. Sure. What happens to the children that are still not getting services because they do not have the staff?
And I'm assuming that that's through CDS, because one of the things that we can say is that the school districts that are in cohort 1 have been able to meet IEP students with IEP needs, if not right away, very shortly. And we have kind of a triage team available for school districts to help them figure that out. So I'm assuming CDS. So the process at CDS is, if there is a child with an unmet need, they're required to meet every 30 days and talk about where that child is at and what looking at the IEP, discussing the wait lists, and then developing a compensatory education plan for them. And I'm not sure if I'm answering that correctly for whoever asked it, but if you have further questions on that, please reach out to either Jackie or myself.
And the next question was, do you have a list of some of the schools, the SAUs that may still join for cohort 2?
I'm going to say no, just because I want to honor that we have some school districts that are still working with their school boards and their community, their constituents. And so I just want to honor that they just haven't made that commitment yet, and give them the space to do that. It isn't many, so.
We have a couple more that have come in. So if a center does not have 3 stars by 2028, they won't be able to have their children partner with the public schools and receive services through public schools or CDS.
Correct. And it's actually 2027. So it's 2 years from this rollout. So yes.
And the next question, will children who are unserved now with CDS transition to the FAU or stay with CDS?
I'm sorry, repeat that. I was reading the question in the chat and I apologize.
Sorry. Will children who are unserved now with CDS transition to the SAU or stay with CDS?
So if they live in the catchment area where there is a school district that is joining cohort 2, they will transition to that school district. I think I'm answering that. Is that what you're getting, Jen? That's what they asked? Oh, Denise, did you ask that question?
Yeah,
I did ask that question, and
Okay.
yes, you did answer that, but I'm hoping we can loop back to the 3 stars for a minute, because you're using a couple of terms interchangeably, and I want to make sure I'm on the same page as you. You're collaborate and contract. So I currently collaborate a lot with CDS, and children are in our centers that receive these services, but we're not a contracted program. So can you just explain a little bit more? I mean, the 3 stars isn't a concern for us, but I'm just trying to understand what you mean by that.
Yep, it is. It is the more formal agreement of contracting. If that program is going to be in a contract with a school district to receive funds as an early childhood special education placement, then that's when the 3 stars comes into play.
And that would be in collaborative pre-K classrooms, because the pre-K would be receiving funds to provide the special education, even though it might be a Head Start pre-K collaborative classroom.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Denise.
I'm
If it's a
sorry.
Head Start collaborative program,
So if it's in a public school pre-K,
Yep.
where the children are receiving the special education in their pre-K classroom, but there is no formal contract between Head Start and the public school to provide those services, does that change anything?
the 3 stars doesn't come into play with the public pre-K at all.
Okay, thank you.
And there should be some sort of formal agreement between a school district and SAU and Head Start. And I know our good friend Stacy McCoy is here, and I'm sure she would echo that typically most school districts, I'm assuming, would have some sort of agreement with the Head Start program to whatever they've decided that agreement looks like, right? It looks different for every Head Start collaborative classroom. It could be that they provide a teacher. It could be that they provide an ed tech. It could be that they provide everything. So once again, it's that in the pre-K Head Start world is unique to each program.
We have a whole bunch of questions coming in now. So we're going to go to the chat first, and then I'm going to go back to the Q&A document we have. Can you talk more about serving 3-year-olds and how many districts are planning on doing that in-house? That is a very big concern for us providers who serve those children currently.
Yes. So our message to all of the school districts that have reached out to the Maine Department of Education and met with us to talk about what does this look like to join the cohort. Part of our presentation to them is about working with the mixed delivery system, which is what all of you are for us. And there are a few school districts that can say that they're universal pre-K. They can accept any child that would like to attend, could go to that program. But not every school district has that ability to accept all the eligible children in their area to attend. And so they need to rely on their partners with programming in their area. And so that has been a very focal point for us at the state level of helping develop this mixed delivery system, having a better understanding of that. We completely understand, and our goal is not to take all of these children out of your programs, your high quality programs, and pull them into the public school. We know that a strong early childhood education footprint in a community ensures that there are families that can work or do what they need to do. And communities need you, and we need more of you. If anything, we've found that, Jackie and I talk about this, is how do we we'll talk about it in this presentation. How do we work with all of you to become a program that can collaborate or contract or both with a CDS or an SAU, because we need you. Children need placements where they can receive their early childhood special education. So the way it works for a 3-year-old is there's no general education funding for 3-year-olds in public school right now. It's just for the 4-year-olds. But that isn't to say that 3-year-olds can't attend a public pre-K program. We also know, I want to add, is that we have many communities that have no programs, no childcare programs in their area. And so those school districts are having to really look internally at their own pre-K programs, and can they serve all of the children with, and remember, this presentation and what we're sharing today is specific to 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds before kindergarten with IEPs, with those special education plans. So it's not every 3-year-old, it's not every 4-year-old. I just want to clarify that as well.
The next question, what will happen to CDS after the transition is complete?
So that's what those support and service hubs, that is the vision that the Ed Committee had for CDS at the end of this transition. And we know we have quality employees, we have highly trained employees, and we also know that we have school districts that need our support. So we're helping to build that relationship as we move through this transition to ensure that, one, all of the children that continue to be under CDS through this transition receive their services, and that we're also able to support the school districts to the best ability that we can. But at the end, CDS will look like that support and service hub. And, you know, to be honest, we don't know exactly what that will look like. We are planning this as we are going as well. But that is the end goal for that. Why don't we take one more question out of the chat, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jackie. I just want to be mindful of time. And I know that all of you are super busy and you're taking time out of your busy day to be here. But I want to make sure that Jackie has enough time to complete her part.
Right. Well, the next question, I'm curious about the centralized billing system and how that will impact special education preschool programs, which currently bill Maine Care directly, if they are partnering with an SAU district.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. And I don't mean that to, we just haven't gotten that far in the process. We are right at the beginning stages of developing this. So on that, I can just say stay tuned. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jackie. I'm going to share my screen again. Let me start on the slide that we left off. Okay, Jackie, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so one of the biggest things we want you to walk away from this presentation with is that you are so incredibly vital to this whole process, to the success of the transition and to the provision of FAPE for 3 to 5-year-olds. Even though FAPE is transitioning, the mixed delivery system is going to stay right where it's at. And you're just as important as you were when you were partnering with CDS to do this. So childcare providers as essential partners in Child Find and FAPE. So during the transition, Child Find will continue to be referrals to the CDS phone numbers and online forms. That will continue, it won't change. The referral destination is going to be based on where the child resides. And cohort 1 and cohort 2 SAUs are accepting referrals as well. And if you are unsure, you can always get in contact with your local CDS office, and they will make sure that the cohort school gets the right referral. What can childcare programs continue to do? They will monitor developmental milestones and behaviors in daily care, document and discuss concerns with families, and collaborate with CDS and SAUs to make timely referrals and support evaluations. You'll also coordinate with service providers who may now be employed by the SAU. So a lot of the things you've been doing, you'll continue to do just with our SAUs. So this is what serving ESCE, or early childhood special education students within and beyond SAU boundaries may look like. Did you want to say something, Sandy?
No, but I was just going to offer to help you if you need it, because this is a confusing one. So just let me know.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So for serving special education students within the district boundary, SAUs are responsible for those children who reside within their SAU boundary. They can attend the SAU's pre-K programs, and they can attend a collaborative program in the SAU community. However, SAUs are not responsible for those children when they attend a program out of state or attend a program out of the SAU boundary, and there is programming available within that SAU's boundaries. For SAUs that do not have programming or space within their pre-K programs, nor any collaborative programs in their community, the resident SAU would do the following. And there are multiple options here to choose from. There's the superintendent's agreement with the SAU where the student is in the program. You can develop partnerships with childcare and preschool programs where the child attends, which we are encouraging with SAUs. Provide telehealth in the childcare or preschool program where the child attends. Offer that child to participate in drop-in services already provided within the SAU. If the IEP agrees, the child can access services at their service provider location or another student solution that is specific to the area. And it says the department will support the provision of services if there are challenges or questions with any of these options. And that was a lot of information. Partnering for FAPE in the mixed delivery system in Maine. Just to recap, services are shifting from the CDS to SAUs for children ages 3 to 5. This will impact how FAPE is delivered, increasing collaboration across settings. And your role will be an active participant in transition planning meetings with CDS, SAUs, and families, which are many of you are already doing. Share developmental insights to inform individualized education programs. Support implementation of IEP strategies within your childcare environment. And communicate regularly with SAU service providers. And this is how we think it would be great for you to connect. If you're interested in partnering with your SAUs, similarly to how you were partnering with CDS, you can express interest in serving as a placement site for preschoolers receiving special education services. Highlight your program's inclusive practices, staff qualifications, and environment. Offer opportunities for SAU staff, like therapists and educators, to visit your site. Offer to schedule or collaborate in joint professional development or planning meetings, and explore the pilot partnership opportunities during Maine's transition from CDS to SAUs. And I can tell you that CDS is already encouraging many of our SAUs to reach out to the programs that we recommend, that we've worked with many of yours for years and are happy to share with them. But the why would be that you can,
Sorry,
I went backwards, Sandy, with this one. Your why would be you can support inclusive education within your natural environments. You can strengthen community partnerships and continuity of services and enhance access to high quality care and education for all children. Many of you have established wonderful relationships with families, and you have so much knowledge about the students you serve that you can only benefit the transition for these kids to the SAUs. How childcare programs can connect continued. For cohort 1 or cohort 2, reach out to your local SAU's director of special education, the superintendent, or the early childhood coordinator. For CDS, if you continue to partnership with us, you can reach out to myself. For exploring options to be a collaborative partner for pre-K programming, you would reach out to Michelle Belanger of the early learning team. And for questions regarding the transition of FAPE and Child Find, you would reach out to Dr. Flack. And now we have time for more questions.
yes, I'm going to stop sharing. There. So we have 10 minutes to answer some questions. I do see that Laura has raised her hand, so I'm going to call on you. Just know that if we don't answer your questions that are in the chat or the Q&A, we will put those into a document and get those answers out to you. So Laura, you didn't have a question, I take it. Jen, would you like to help us with the Q&A?
Sure. Where can I find information about the requirements for 282B?
Yep, so you can contact the Maine Department of Education, the certification department. If it's specific to a person, typically what happens is you have to apply and they do a transcript analysis to see what courses that person needs to take to obtain their either their 282 or 282B.
All right. Just go down here. Are school districts being encouraged to collaborate with high quality programs in the district? Is there any incentive for them to do so? Does the funding follow the child? How much tuition per child per year would be provided for that child to attend another program?
So yes, all the SAUs are being encouraged to connect with their partners in their catchment area. I do want to say that we have been providing ongoing scaffolded professional development with our cohorts. We also know that this is a very busy time of year for school districts, and cohort 2 knows that they don't have to take on child find and FAPE until the first day of school this year. And so I think what's going to happen is they're going to be able to take a breath and then do some of this work during the summer, which I know isn't always an opportune time for everyone. But we are also offering an additional layer of support for school districts that want to connect with the mixed delivery system in their catchment area. The money thing is a local control decision. So each school district would, if they were going to contract with a early childhood education program, they would meet with them and negotiate a contract with them. The money there is a per pupil allocation, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. So they would still, the money doesn't like flow through the school district to those programs. That program would have to enter into a contract that would detail out all of the different services that they would be providing and then establish that rate with the school district.
What environmental considerations and adjustments are being made in schools to support young children? Having worked in a school setting and a NAEYC center, there are standards of care that schools are not prepared to provide, including assistant professional care, hygiene routines, and the importance of the intentionally designed environment.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to give a huge shout out to our early learning team as they are out and monitoring and working with public pre-K programs on a daily basis, fielding questions, doing on-site visits, technical assistance. We also have many different other layers of support that are going on through the preschool development grant. We have a lot of SAUs that are in cohorts about learning about all of those things. What is, appropriate early childhood education? What does that classroom look like? So I want to give great kudos to our early learning team. We also have our staff at CDS that work very closely with public pre-K programs, and that would be Lori Whittemore. And what she does specifically for school districts that are joining cohort 1 or cohort 2 is that she will do an on-site visit and work with them on appropriate classroom design. We've been purchasing materials for programs. We help them with curriculum. We also, and the early learning team obviously has fabulous curriculum, free curriculum if you need it as well. Lori also goes through with the school district all of the incoming IEPs to ensure that they have all of the necessary environmental materials or furniture that those children need to be successful in a public pre-K setting. So we have a lot of different things going on at the state level that are supporting public pre-K programs.
Right. Our next question. What happens to 3-year-old students who have CDS plans over the summer? Will they receive services as outlined in their plans?
So if they have ESY, which is that extended school year on their IEP, then that's when they would receive that summer programming. Or if it's a compensatory service plan that provides programming over the summer.
All right. And Tara Williams has added, it might be helpful to clarify that a child care doesn't have to have someone with a 282B in order to serve children with special education services in their childcare. The licensed childcare needs to be a 3-star. Special education teachers, OTs, PTs, etc., can visit the childcare to provide services on site as part of the child's plan.
Yes, thank you, Tara, for clarifying that. So CDS or the school district and some of our special purpose pre-Ks have 282B staff. That would be for childcare centers, family childcares, preschool programs. That would look more like an itinerant 282B teacher coming into your program and providing specially designed instruction and consultation in your setting.
The next question is back to certification. If someone has a master's with a 282, do they need to get another master's?
No. So if you are working in this age group, you are supposed to be certified. And I would just want to clarify once again, special education teacher certification. You are supposed to have your 282B, which is the birth through 5, or I think it's also listed as preschool on the certification on your portal. So if you are employed by CDS, or if you are employed by a school district or a special purpose private preschool that employs 282B staff, they should have, working for this age group, they should have that preschool or birth addition to that special education teacher certification. With that being said, if you have your 282, you can apply for your 282B and you will receive a conditional 282B certification. And once again, they'll look at your transcript and they will detail out for you the courses that you would need to take to obtain your 282B. But you'll have that conditional for 3 years.
Can you define what drop-in services means under additional options for programming?
Yeah, so if there is a situation where a family is choosing to send their child to a preschool at a different location outside that school district's catchment area, but still wants to access special education services, they could schedule those appointments with the school district to go in and get, let's just say, it's speech therapy twice a week. They could schedule that so that the child is going into the school district to get speech twice a week, not necessarily at the early childhood program that the child's at.
Will you clarify cohort 2 SAUs will receive special education referrals from children in the community settings and beginning when?
Yep, so that will start on the first day of school for that school district. And what will happen is Jackie mentioned if you use the CDS, I think it's a 1-800 number, but it might be a 188 number, and or the online referral form, or you call it in, those will automatically funnel to a cohort 1 or cohort 2 school. We do that behind the scenes. But officially, the school districts in cohort 2 start on their first day of school taking referrals.
And will CDS still be working with preschools and childcares for 1 and 2-year-olds?
Yes, early intervention for me is still under child development service and is thriving and doing well. So yes.
And then we have, if a child with an IEP is attending a childcare in a district different than the one they live in, which SAU would be coordinating with them?
Yep. So going back to that slide that Jackie went over, the school district where the child resides is the one that is responsible for that child's IEP. And that's where that individualized conversation happens in the IEP meeting about least restrictive environment and where those services are going to happen. And really working with the family on ensuring that that child is getting their services in the best program that they can obtain that.
How will transportation work for these young children?
Yep, that's a great question. So school districts that transport for their pre-K programs will transport to their public pre-K. We also know that some children have specialized transportation on their IEPs, so school districts will be responsible for that, just like they are for a third grader or a senior in high school that needs specialized transportation. Then the conversations might get a little more detailed about transportation depending on the needs of the family and the student and ensuring that that child can receive their services. So there may be other transportation needs identified during that process.
I love that there is so much support for public pre-K programs. Are there also supports in place, resources for private high-quality providers? If you want the mixed delivery system to work and don't want private centers to close, they would also need resources and support.
Well, I know that we have a whole team here that is supporting the mixed delivery system. So I'm not sure who left that comment, but we would love to hear more on what you need to be successful moving forward as a program in the mixed delivery system. We definitely want to hear from you on what that might look like. We also know that we have partners at Office of Child and Family Services, Maine Roads to Quality, our early learning team. We have many, many people attending here today that would love to take that information back and talk about how that we can support you better. So if you aren't comfortable putting it in the chat, we will make sure, let's see, I think I saw a chat wanting email addresses, and I totally realize it is 2 o'clock and many people have to leave, but we will make sure that the presentation goes out to everyone. And I'm going to throw my email in. I think everybody can see it. Jackie, can you put yours in? And Jen, can you put yours in? And you can reach out. And if we can't answer your question, we will bring it to the team to help support you.
Want me to keep going through the questions, or do you?
Why don't we do one more, and then I'm going to have to stop. I think I have a 2 o'clock meeting. And
Okay.
we just want to be mindful of everyone's time today. We appreciate you coming, and we are more than happy to do this as many times as we need to help support all of you in the field.
All right, the last question I have, well, not the last question, but the last question we're going to answer right now is the impact of special purpose private preschool programs that currently employ their own 282B staff in contract with CDS is still unclear and appears inconsistent. It seems that the way a program contracts with multiple districts in a program's catchment area may differ from one school district to another.
And it could, and that is part of this transition. I know that that's the shift in thinking, as we know that we're moving from one big system, child development services, to many different SAUs. And so it is true that a private special purpose pre-K program may have many different contracts with different school districts to provide those services moving forward.
Do we have time for one more that might be helpful to many?
One more, yes.
One more, okay. How will the transition from Part C to Part B look like now? Right now, it's a 30-minute meet and greet and then an IEP meeting to talk about services.
Yep. So that may look very much the same, and it may look very different. That will be up to early intervention for me and the public school district. So right now, we have in cohort 1, we have Part C transition, which is that early intervention transition to public school. The school districts are attending those meetings now. Instead, it used to be CDS handing it off to CDS, which still happens in the areas where CDS is still covering Part B services. And so for this is having CDS collaborate with the school district on finding that the times to have those transfer IEP meetings and then the transition IEP meetings as well, where they are discussing eligibility and what evaluations they might need to identify a child under Part B. And just so you know that the school districts are all well aware, and we've been working with them in cohort 1 this year and getting them ready for cohort 2 for next year, is Part B is responsible for those evaluations and that eligibility process. So it is essential that our school districts are part of that transition process. I'm going to stop there. It's 2:05. We appreciate everyone coming today. Please feel free to reach out. Once again, our emails are in the chat, and we will follow up with answers to the questions that we were not able to answer today. And thank you again.